Hey guys, I hope you all are doing well. This video is going to be more stories from my hard drive and places that I found them on the internet. That is because I'm still researching for a proper video, which is like a top 3 or a top 5 on haunted places around the world. So stay tuned for that, and if you liked this video, then please like and subscribe. And yeah, let's get into it. This happened in Boden, Sweden a couple of years ago. Boden is known for one thing and one thing only, and that's military forts. It was long thought of as the key to northern Sweden, which is because it would be the first thing that the Soviets would attack if they ever came charging. These forts were very secret and were used to store a large portion of Sweden's gold reserves. However, after the Cold War ended, the forts became even more obsolete and therefore were eventually decommissioned altogether. During this time, I was 21 years old, and I was hanging out with a female friend that's more like the sister I never had. We're both scouts and have been for as long as I can remember, and one day we're bored as hell, so we decided to go recon a cool campsite for the coming Halloween scare hike. My friend, let's call her H, knows a lot of cool old forts and the trench systems therein. So we drive off in my car, which was perfectly fine and had gone through the inspection without a hitch only a week before. And we decided to check out one of the nearest older forts. So we parked the car a couple hundred meters from the fort because someone had placed a bunch of big stones as a crude roadblock on the dirt road to the fort. So we walk or climb, I guess, up to the fort from the right slope that's somewhat accessible. Any thoughts of any recon for a campsite has soon been replaced by thoughts of exploration. And by this time it was about midday, but the daylight was waning fast due to it being northern Sweden after all. However, luckily we brought flashlights. We eventually locate a hole in the fence, big enough for us to get through. So we explore around a bit, though all the doors are locked with either these massive padlocks or internal locks. Start to head back the way we came in, and the thick door that we both sure we had been closed before is now slightly ajar. Not much, but just by a couple centimeters. We haven't heard any door opening or anyone else being in here, to be honest. This door is about 1.5 meters wide, 2.5 meters tall, and made entirely out of 1 decimeter of solid steel on rusty old hinges that look like they should have been seized. And I remember that H told me before that the local wildlife seems to shun this place altogether. Okay, I'm getting a real bad feeling about this now. We both keep our distance, but our curiosity gets the better of us. We both try to sneak inside, and it's pitch dark. Except I sense something moving inside. I don't really want to know how I know this, but I just get a very weird feeling, like something is staring at us from inside the room. We both aim our flashlight at and thumb them on. The flashlights both have a short burst of light before they go dead as doorknobs, and I know that we just put new batteries in them before we went out. In the short time we have, I managed to catch a glimpse of something. A gray, blackish, humanoid shape that looked more like a beast than a man. At the same time, something in my mind pushes the primal predator panic button. I'm not really sure what H saw, but she is white as a sheet, and as damn near as panicked as I've ever seen her. We both scramble out without saying a word to each other. We both must have broken the record for the 200-meter panic sprint. I don't know about H, but I felt something, and I can't really describe it. More than a terrible sense of hate following us. I get in the car and turn the key. Nothing. I try to turn it again. The car won't start. The headlights won't even turn on. Eventually, after turning the key frantically, again and again, for the longest 2 minutes of my life, the car starts. We get the hell out of Dodge, and with gravel flying everywhere as I floor it, we get back to the main road. I later learned through other friends that there has been other similar occurrences there, some hearing a faint but very much mocking laughter coming from beyond the door, and others feeling watched when they are near the fort. The door has never been ajar before or after, though, and has always been locked when anyone has tried to open it. So what do you think they encountered in that military fort? Could it be some kind of cryptid? Could it be another creature? Could it be the manifestation of an angry ghost? Or is it fake? You decide. Speaking of bad vibes when you're in a place where you maybe feel like you shouldn't be in, one time me and my cousin were kind of exploring the woods near this old graveyard in my area, and we found people's pictures that were singed on the edges, and they were had X's through the eyes, and they were pinned up on tree branches and stuff, and they were people that we knew. It was school pictures, and it was really creepy because some of them actually I think one of the kids broke their leg that summer. One of the kids got into some kind of accident and stuff. It was just really weird. And to be honest, I don't really know how much I believe in all that stuff, but it was just spooky how they were in the woods, the pictures were up there, the edges were singed, the eyes were X'd out, and then all that stuff happened to them. Anyways, on to the next story. So this story is about La Llorona, and there is some Spanish in this, and I am obviously not a Spanish speaker, but I'm going to try and say it, so forgive my pronunciation. I was 7 years old or so at the time, and I was living with my grandmother after my parents got divorced. The house was a medium-sized one outside the town of El Paso. Some parts were still pretty rural at the time. Out behind my grandma's backyard is a vacant lot where there's some grass and there's a big tree, and to the far left there's an auto zone, but besides that there's not much else. Out past the lot is the street and my elementary school. It looks pretty spooky at night. The lights of the auto shop dimly lit the yard. My grandma has a huge garden, lots of trees, flowers, etc. It looks menacing as hell at night though. I always kind of imagine aliens hiding out in the backyard and watching me from the bushes. So it's a pretty stormy night. There's a flash flood warning if I remember correctly. The backyard would flood when it rained a lot, making it look like a pond. I would take advantage of it and play Jurassic Park with my toys, but that's besides the point. I always liked to be spooked. Asked Mom if she had any stories growing up. She tells me that her and her friends used to play in the lot. Used to be a canal there, and that they'd play in the water during the summertime. The grandmother would tell her La Llorona would get her if she stayed up too late. Mom would have frequent nightmares about her wandering around the house saying, "Ay mis hijos, donde están mis hijos?" But then one night, she has a different nightmare. Here's how it went. She wakes up from a dream, and she feels spooked and looks outside. There's a witch creature with long arms that were long enough to embrace the entire backyard, and she wakes up at that point. Little me is sufficiently spooked, so I lie there awake for quite a while after she leaves. The storm is still raging outside and the wind is howling, and after a while I manage to pass out. I have a nightmare, very similar to my mom's. Turn over in my bed and see a figure standing out in the yard. It looks like one of those tall things from that Marilyn Manson video, The Beautiful People I think it's called. Now side note, that song is a banger. Anyways, I cover my eyes with my hands out of fear. I uncover them and she's closer now. Long arms to one side. She shuffles closer to my window on her weird stilt legs. Cover eyes again, uncover them. She's peeking through the window. Long matted hair covering her face. She's far enough inside that a part of her torso is in too. My mind isn't sure where to go from here, so I wake up. The storm is still beating pretty hard outside. Somehow, I manage to go back to sleep. When the morning comes, I wake up, and its hot West Texas sun dries up the pond and the yard within hours. There's no water, save for some puddles. There's a biggish puddle at the center of the yard where the pond pools up. I go and wander around outside for a bit, and it's a Saturday, Sunday, so there's nothing to do but play my PS2, so I get bored. I realize the fence looks lopsided. What? I go to investigate. I see the fence is sunk into the ground fairly deep in the right side of the yard. I think there's no real reason for this to have happened unless there was a lot of weight placed on top of it. The fence poles were held in place by cement, and the cement was covered by mud too. It looks like the ground itself sank a bit. I remember the dream and I get really scared. I run inside and tell Grandpa. He He digs the poles out of the ground and mends the fence over a day or two. I think La Llorona is after me, and I'm spooked for days. A week or so later, the incident is at the back of my mind. I lay down to sleep, and I have a nightmare like my mom's other one. It's daytime, and I'm doing normal stuff inside, a normal dream for the most part, playing by my windows, and I hear the "Ay Mesijos" and other stuff. I get spooked and run to the other side of my house. The dream continues on from there. So what do you think there? Was that one just a dream? Or was it something else? There's 2 other short ones here that are in the same post, so I'll do those ones too. This is a story that was told by the mother. I was little, and I was interested in ghosts and aliens and stuff, so I asked my mom. She tells me a story, and she says that her best friend at the time are having a sleepover. They're doing girl stuff, but I don't really know what. They hear what sounds like hooves and chains on the road outside. The kitchen window faces the road, and I look out the window, and I see what looks like orbs of light, yellow and blue, floating down the road. They get past the side of the house, and they go around to the living room window to see more of it. It goes past my grandma's house and gets about 2 houses further down, and begins to lift straight up into the sky. They're spooked and unsure of what to make of it, and she's still not sure, to this day, exactly what she saw. And this last piece here is the father's story. Dad's side of the family lives in Van Horn, a little town in the middle of the desert in Texas. Grandpa owns a gas station, and it's still there, but it's under new management. My dad and my uncle are wandering around town since there really isn't anything to do in Van Horn. Just wandering around and starting to get dark. Desert lights are dark as hell. They're on the outskirts of town, where houses and businesses start to disappear in the highway and the desert takes over. I decide to start heading home, and they hear what sounds like hooves behind them. They turn around, and there's a goat out of nowhere. They freeze and it charges at them. They take off at the speed of light, the goat on their tail all the while. They get into town, and it's still after them. It chases them a few blocks, and they start to pray for help. They run a bit more, and the sound of the goat's hooves seems to fade away. They eventually come to a stop and turn around, and there's no goat. So I included that one because I found it kind of funny, getting chased by a goat. Because I have been chased by a goat. It's pretty terrifying. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed that story, especially like the last 2 little ones. But what do you think? Was La Llorona after the mother and the person in the story? Did the mother see aliens? And was the father chased by a demon goat? You decide. The story takes place in the Ruby Mountains in Nevada. I was alone in the Ruby Mountains, past Soldier Lake, up near the pass by Hidden Lake. I was alone on this trip, even though I'd been there before with friends. I carried a Glock 19 with 2 spare mags. Only the first mag had gold dots while the others were full metal jacket. I figured it would be cheaper that way, and I would not need 60 rounds of ammo for anything. If I wanted to shoot, I didn't have to waste my defensive ammo. This is a nice hike. It takes about 4 hours to get in, and when you get up there, it's a nice place, with plains and a prairie at the top, surrounded by mountains. And I even took lots of pictures the first day, but I'll say this, I'll never return to those trails, nor to Hidden Lake. For those that don't know, Hidden Lake gets its name from the fact it's up on a ridge and can't be seen from the trails. It's a great camping and fishing spot, and the view is pretty awesome. To get there, you hike up the Soldier Pass trail and turn up the stick in the ground. It was a pretty hot day, but I still decided to shoot the trail for a 4-day weekend. I got to the top in about 3.5 hours or so and made pretty good time. I set up camp, which was just a pup tent, and set about making dinner. I had gotten stuck in Alco for the first part of the day, and when I had finished making the climb, it was just starting to get late. I cooked dinner on the fire, and I crashed pretty hard. The first couple of nights passed without anything unusual happening. Spent the days just kind of screwing around, hiking, fishing, and relaxing. Things begin late into Saturday night, my last night there. On Saturday, I'm sitting at the lake's ridge, making my way over to a spring to refill my water bottle. The water here is glass clear, but everything gets the pills just in case. As I'm walking, I hear this godforsaken sound, like dragging metal on cement, just painfully loud and very uncomfortable to hear. I looked around, but I could see no source. At this time, all the bugs and birds had stopped making noise. This is always the background noise, right? You don't notice it, but it's there. I think I was the only time I was ever aware of it, because it all stopped. All I could hear was the spring and my own breathing. I don't think I've ever felt that alone in my entire life. I would have killed to be able to hear the sound of a car engine or a horn or just people talking, anything but that silence. I was on the far side of the lake, near this snow outcropping when this happened. A good 10 to 15 minute walk back if you're in a hurry. I filled my water bottle up and headed back. The sounds of the animals returned, but I was still a little nervous. When I got back, my camp was destroyed, including my bag. Everything was scattered everywhere, and I felt like a bomb went off. Everything was broken and rendered useless. Even the silverware was bent and twisted. The fire, which less than an hour before was burning brightly, was dead as if someone dumped a bucket of water on it. I stopped being nervous and started to get mad. I figured some kids had done it, but I had not seen a soul since I made the climb, but that did not mean much. I started gathering my broken belongings, and I had a nice fairy hole, a natural hole in the rock along the ridges, and decided I would relocate my camp there. I got the fire burning again, and my stuff was unrepairable or useless. I burned, just to save the weight. As I went around cleaning up, I got this feeling. I'm not quite sure how to describe it, like you walked into someone's house without them being home, and I did not know you were there, like you should not be there. But that is inadequate wording. I was getting nervous, and I hurried up to the ridge. That's when I saw it first. A dark mass, moving along the side, the edge of the lake. It was much too far away to make out any details, but I watched. I saw that it was following the same path I had taken. It was thin, though, long and thin and dark. Now, I took the simplest path, so maybe it was just following that, but it feels like it was tracking me. Why would it want to go to the spring to drink instead of a lake? I was starting to get a little unhinged when I saw it. I have been hunted by a mountain lion before, and the feeling I had was just that, hunted. I was being stalked, but in a way, we were equals. Both cats and I are apex predators, and the tides could easily turn. When I saw this, any thought of killing it left my mind. I just wanted to run and hide, run as fast and as hard as I could. I was prey. I could do nothing to this thing. The way it moved was so certain, so clean, that I knew I could not kill it. My gun, on the way up, had made me feel so big. It just felt like a toy now. It moved between 4 feet and 2. I hurried up the slope and threw my stuff in the hole. I used rocks and the broken tent stakes and the poles to barricade the end of it. The side just ended in a drop-off, and I pulled rocks and other debris to the other side. I curled up in a ball and lodged myself in the hole, clutching my pistol in one hand and pocket knife in the other. I could hear rocks shifting outside, farther down the slope. I heard something get up the slope and start squeaking around. It was a squeak mixed with a hiss. Though a few holes I had left, I could see flashes of dark matted fur. It had small dark eyes, thin long snout, almost badger-like, tapered. I could not breathe. I could hear claws clicking on the rocks not 10 feet away. It searched around outside for about half an hour, then left. The rest of the night I could hear the rocks shifting as if something moved around them. I think it knew I was there, but it didn't see me as a threat of any kind, and I didn't even sleep that night. In the morning I left, and I have not been back since. So what do you think this guy saw? Was it a cryptid? Was it, like he said, just a big badger? I'm not sure if they're native to the Ruby Mountains, but I don't know. Or is it all just fake? You can decide. So I hope you enjoyed those stories. And if you did, then please like and subscribe for more. The next video, I think, as I mentioned before, is going to be like a top 3 or a top 5 of haunted places around the world. Other videos include more Bigfoot. I got a request to do a Dogman video, so I might do that. And probably some more aliens and missing 411, so stay tuned for all that. Thank you.